The last activity that we're going to try today is called a resource hand. And probably that page that has the hand on it, flip it over so you can actually outline. You're going to outline your own hand, and then I'm going to talk you through some things that you're going to write on different parts of the outline of your hand that relate to thinking about our resources, what we do have, what can help us, who can help us, and then afterwards we'll talk about it just like before. So this is the window of tolerance activity. I thought about putting music on, and I'm not going to do that. We're just going to go for this. So the first thing that you need to do, I would say take the page in your handouts that has the hand drawn on it and flip it over and outline your hand if you can. I'm doing that right now. I know I have a lectern to draw on, and you guys have your laps. Outline your hand and leave a little bit of space for your, outline down maybe 2 inches down your wrist, because you're going to need your wrist. So you're going to end up with something that kind of looks like that. Just outlining your hand. No one else is going to see it, so you just do it however you wish. I'm going to walk you through a couple of activities, and I'm going to do them with you. I haven't done this one in a while. The first thing that we're going to do is for your fingers. You could write it on the finger. You could write it across the finger. You could write it anyhow you want to write it. And I'm going to ask you to, on your fingers, these are things, people, and places that I have. Names of people I can turn to, phone numbers of people that are there for me if I'm stressed, places I go when I'm stressed, any outdoors for some people, any symbols. Sometimes people draw the cross, symbols, images, or words that you can rely upon for support and that can help you feel safe and connected. So we're going to just work on that for a couple minutes, and as it looks like, and then I'll just kind of move us into the next. So we're going to end up writing on our fingers, the upper hand, the middle hand, and the wrist. So we're going to have 4 different zones related to our hands. So places, people, and things that you can call and rely upon for support and help you feel safe and connected. That's on the fingers, across the fingers, around the fingers, however you want to do that. Completed that, you can keep working on that. If you've completed it, my upper palm is things that you are proud of about yourself, about who you are, about what your values are, any of that. I am, things that you are proud of about yourself. You can keep working on that if you're not done yet. And on your lower palm, you're writing things I can do, skills, abilities, things you're learning, ways you're managing your emotions, things that I can do. There is some overlap between the upper palm and the middle palm and the lower palm. And if you're finished with that one, there's one more to go. I will, I'm missing a word, I will do this about self-care. My examples for here, just as practice consistently to go to my AA meeting, meet with my small group, take my dog for a daily walk, call my brother, etc., etc. What are some things that you do or that you plan to do after today even about self-care? Looks like folks are in the process of wrapping up. You know, this is not an exhaustive list. There's always room for more. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to pair and share. I'd like you to share one item from each of the 4 elements with your conversation partners.
One question.
Yes.
I can do, is that related to self-care or just broadly?
More broadly? Yeah, good question. Sorry for the disclarity. And talk kind of what we just did before with this last one. How was that? How was that experience for you? One of each of your things that you wrote down, and then we'll come back together in a bit and pair and share, or we'll talk about it together. Lots of good conversations. I love to see that. I know I'm doing my job when the room isn't silent. I love it. How was this experience for you? And what's one thing from your fingers, if you care to share it? Let's not do them together. How was this for you? Was it helpful? Was it annoying? Were you like, why isn't this over yet? How did you experience this activity? It made you feel blessed. Beautiful. Thank you. You are the hands of Christ for a lost world. Thank you. Yes. Why was the I am harder than the I will? Well, what do you guys think? Why would it be harder to come out? Did anybody else feel that way? I saw some other nodding heads. Do you have some insight into why that might be?
Sometimes it's easier to be mindful about where we'd like to be or our goals than to be of ourselves.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's more mindful to be thinking about goals. Yes. Anybody else on that?
But we don't want to brag.
We don't want to brag, right? We're good Mennonites. Can't be proud of anything, including of being proud.
It's hard to believe that we have anything to offer.
It is hard to believe that we have anything to offer.
And that's a spiral.
It
Because
is.
The longer I sat here finding it hard to write I am and I can things, the worse I felt.
Yes. I'm sorry.
The easier it was to listen to lies about my self-worth.
Yes. And so, even though it's hard, this can be an important measuring stick for us, right? Because we are made in the image of God. We are made with capacities, but we often don't. What I've heard consistently, whether I've done this with caseworkers or some friends who just came in and wanted to try a short training, is that it is a surprise actually how much we do have places, names, but then there's a struggle around the I am. Yeah. What else? You had your hand up.
On the I am, as one who struggled with an identity
Yes.
for years, I'm going to echo what Joanne said, the belief, I like that you have the belief up there, but when you realize that you are a child of the King,
Yes.
you have to think, but that was a difficult part to fill in.
Yes. So that was hard to fill in.
Surrounded by community or part of a larger, I'm not sure, a larger something
Yes.
because of this exercise.
Beautiful. An awareness of the other. The phrase that came to mind was great cloud of witnesses. That we are not alone, that there are other people who have walked the journey with us or know at least a portion of our journey and know that we belong to God. That's beautiful. Other comments?
I struggle to fill in the I will.
Okay.
I'm not very good at self-care.
Yes. So that's another common feedback, that it's hard to say, what will I do for self-care? And I think that's another reason. If self-care is connected to resilience, then it is actually worth trying to think about what do I want to do on a regular basis to help me sustain myself. We are dependent upon God, but there's also a portion of the process that's me making the time to do woodworking or swimming laps is something I do that is very It's good for me. It's self-care, and I find it, I just come out of the water in a different mood than I went in. And so I wonder what it would be like. I don't have this written today, but I might do this for other trainings. Actually create a page of possible self-care from all that you tell me, because sometimes I have to hear someone else's self-care to realize either what I do for myself or what I want to do for myself and haven't considered it before. Yeah. Other comments?
On the way here, just on that thought, I was thinking about how Jesus said that he only did what the Father told him to do. So when he would go away to rest, the Father told him to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that, with the whole like self-care thing, that gives freedom.
To actually do the self-care. Yep, so noticing that Jesus took care of himself and that it was something that was directed from the Father, it frees us to consider that we should be doing self-care as well, whatever that looks like. Any more? There's a good question. If you've been in a traumatic situation, why is self-care so hard? Tell me what you think. Can be busy taking care of someone else. Do you have time even to care for yourself? That's a good one. Say that again. The belief that you're not worth being cared for.
Is it something about being so aware of the danger and what needs to be done?
Yes.
I didn't hear noises in my car because I've got so many things in my brain. Why would I notice that light on or the noise?
Right. So I'm so distracted by all the demands that I fail to hear or see the warning signs that are around me, whether it's in my car or my husband's face, right? Yeah, there's another one over there somewhere. Ah. That's correct. That's right. So if you face neglect, you may feel that your needs are never valid. What was the first? You said something before that as well. Or maybe it was just in that direction. You don't deserve to be taken care of. And yet, one of the most intimate stories in Jesus' life, in my mind, is the woman who comes and breaks open the jar of nard and washes Jesus' feet with her hair. And people are upset, right? We can imagine why we might be upset observing that. And yet, in one of the translations, Jesus says, "Leave her alone. She has done what she could with what she has." He was able to receive an incredibly intimate gift. Some theologians, and this might not be where you are, and that's okay, I'm not trying to create a controversy. Some theologians say because what she used was a substance that was used to prepare bodies for burial, some theologians think she was one of the only people that actually understood that Jesus was going to really die. He'd been saying it, but the disciples were shocked. People real close to him didn't get it. And that she was preparing him for his own burial, which I think is just an amazing and beautiful read on that story. We do deserve self-care. But if it hasn't been modeled, we're not even, I didn't know where to start. I felt, again, I think my therapist, I think I said that to you, my therapist had to teach me about self-care because I didn't really know. My go-to was fetal position in front of the TV in a dark room and wait till morning when I had to go to work again. That was all I knew. And she slowly began to push out the limits. And well, you said you really like swimming. Do you think maybe it would be helpful to swim laps? You really love music. I have this friend who's a music therapist. Do you think you might want to work with her for a while? I didn't know. All of those things were extraordinarily helpful. And it's because someone else noticed it in me. And so isn't it interesting that one of the things we can do for each other in our own communities, from a look at me, how big and important I am, but from a humble position, talking about self-care with our kids, with our families, with the people we go to church with, it matters. It builds us up. It helps us reconnect to God. And so if we're never doing it, I think that's a problem. We're missing an opportunity to help us stay in the window of tolerance. And that's really sad, especially when we're trauma survivors and already are living potentially with an imbalance. Okay.
One thing I found helpful was just recognizing it's really hard to love people when my heart's not at rest.
Yep.
So that moving to that place of rest actually opens that up to love others better.
Yep. It's really hard to love others when my own heart is not at rest. That's a profound statement.
Something that I've started doing as well is, what would I tell my best friend?
Beautiful.
Because likely is what my heart needs to hear.
Brilliant. What would I tell my best friend? It's probably what my heart needs to hear. How can we move ourselves sort of out of the way in a way that actually allows us to see and hear what our needs are? Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Any more? I'm not going to make you tell me what you wrote on your fingers. All right, let's see, where are we? Why does this help? Before you read what I wrote, why do you think this could be helpful to trauma survivors?
Help to see our own self-worth.
Yes, help to see our own self-worth. Do you want to say a little more about that?
I can tend to, when I'm feeling anxious, I just replay the negative thought over and over in my head. It just gets me out of that.
Yes. So it can break harmful circular thought patterns that keep me trapped, and actually I'm potentially getting increasingly more anxious because it spins in my brain and I can't seem to break. Beautiful. Never said better. I need to write that one down. Where's my pen? You might want to copy. Yep, I paid him too. Reminds me of.
The resources at my fingertips.
It's beautiful. That's so sweet. Other comments? Why might this be helpful for someone who's recovering from trauma? Well, drama and trauma, they often go together.
You don't always realize what it is. And consciously thinking about it, writing it down, oh, yes.
Yes. Paul uses the phrase, at least in some translations, making the invisible visible. And I think there are ways in which this practice of noticing what's real, I know there's another person that had a comment, and I'll let you in a second. Noticing what's real, noticing what's good in our lives, noticing the ways in which we are stretching ourselves to do self-care. It makes the invisible, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think God is a part of this process. It's a way of letting him in and also maybe noticing how he is already within us and working in our lives. There was another comment over here.
Oh, it was very similar. I was going to say, if you're panicking or you're anxious or you're stressed,
Right.
you can't step out of that and tell yourself,
Yep.
kind of what you said, making the invisible visible. I can't stop my panic to say, let me use my resources.
Right.
But I can stop and read, which goes back to the breathing and the drawing and everything else.
Absolutely.
Because we're putting that space between our feelings
That's right.
and realizing our resources.
That's right. Years and years ago, when I first started in therapy, I was a case manager and I wore little, tiny little heels. I don't know how I ever managed to wear heels. I usually wore a suit, skirt, and jacket, and I would carry in my breast pocket over my heart. My therapist would sign. She had beautiful handwriting. She has beautiful handwriting, and she would sign her name on the back of one of her business cards. And I would carry that close to my heart all the time because I was really struggling to stay connected. I had never, ever been so connected before. I had never, ever had someone that said, you know, if calling me in the middle of the night is the difference between doing harm to yourself and not, I'd really rather that you would call. So also these physical symbols that we can carry with us. Some people carry something called a pocket cross, comes out of the the Anglican tradition. It's a cross, but the edges are rounded so that it fits very nicely in your hand. And some people carry that all the time in their pocket, and it helps them to remember, I am a person of prayer. I belong to Jesus. This Jesus who suffered and died, he has knowledge of my suffering. Anything that we can do to build in supports for ourselves is a bonus, always, in this kind of work. Any more comments? I kind of just said what's up there, creating a visual representation, and you said it, put it on your fridge, put it in your mirror, and I have had folks that come to these trainings who go home and put it on their refrigerator so they can see it every day. Creating a tangible tool for self-regulation. Creating also engages our sensory qualities, which activates both sides of our cortex and increases feedback that's going in to prefrontal cortex. That's all up there in one way or another. Helps remind me that I am not without resources. I feel like, especially in my early days of treatment, that I felt, and in some ways I was, incredibly alone. And that business card reminded me that I wasn't completely alone, even though I felt like I was. Knowing can't read, knowing I have resources helps me. Wow, I can't read anymore today, my friends. Helps me resist full-blown anxiety. Sometimes just remembering who I'm connected to helps me not go down that spiral path. Thinking about the people that care about me actually increases, so this lovely brain chemical called oxytocin. There's evidence that just spending time looking at someone's picture who really cares about you, or thinking about your relationship with that person, even when you're not talking to them individually in that moment, you will make a little more oxytocin, which takes us a little closer away from depression and towards a place of calm, and I'm valued, I'm good, and I'm loved by other people. All of that matters. Final questions or comments on this exercise? So if you sign up on the email list, you will get a copy of all of these slides in a PDF format that you can look at on your computer or you can print out. And also, if you ask, if you get both of the things I'm offering, the second one has all of these activities that we've just done written up that you could carry away with you and teach to somebody else. That comes from an organization, I want to give credit where credit is due. That comes from an organization called First Aid Arts. It was originally started by Christian missionaries who were working in the slums of one of the Mexican cities. And they recognized, and this was true for me when I worked in Cambodia, I did not have 1,000 therapists trained who spoke Khmer and could go and talk to all my neighbors about the harms that they had faced. Well, then what do? If we don't have those specialists, well, one thing that we can do is try to give people activities that can help them return to the window of tolerance, help activate prefrontal cortex, and this will enhance people's capacity to cope. And so we have not done all of the activities that are in that packet, but you are very welcome to receive it by email, and feel free to use it, practice it yourself, try it with other people. These kinds of activities really can help people who are feeling not only traumatized, but when we have things that come our way that push us out of the window of tolerance, these things can help us get back. Where are you right now? Take your measurement one more time. Did your number change? I see some yeses. And did your number change towards the window of tolerance? You don't have to tell me, but that's the goal, is trying, again, part of the goal is trying to help people really be conscious of where they are. And because when we know where we are, we then have tools to help us get where we want to be, which is closer to the window of tolerance. So here's a write-up. This is sort of, if we're assessing across many of these different kinds of activities, what do we know? Things that involve intentional breath, intentional movement, or dance. It increases body awareness. It increases a sense of connecting to others. It activates mirror neurons. I don't really want to talk about that. Mirror neurons are part of what helps us when we're babies and we are slowly developing and growing with our parents. We learn what a smile means, and we learn what a frown means, and we learn what a sad face means. All of that is part of this full body, head, spirit awareness. And breath work, movement, or dance can actually activate those mirror neurons in positive ways and help that part of our emotional regulation system that's in our brains. It can help set the tone in ways that are positive, not negative. And breath, movement, and dance can decrease anxiety. Music, moving with rhythm or song, and obviously there's going to be some overlaps here, lowers anxiety, reduces feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, releases oxytocin, which increases our sense of well-being, enhances within-body sensation, returning to the self, returning to prefrontal cortex. Doing things with our hands, it can increase our functional connectivity from one hemisphere to the other, and that's always a good thing. Helps reduce negative emotions, engages our mind in positive, creative experiences. And finally, expressive writing, which you're going to get a chance to just do a teeny tiny bit yet today. It eases our intense emotions and helps organize traumatized memories. It assists in meaning-making processes of recovery. We haven't talked much about self-soothing, but it helps us feel. Self-soothing is another way to say it helps us feel calm, and it decreases depressive symptoms and the impact of intrusive thinking. Again, all of this is already in a PDF for you if you want it, so don't frantically write things down. It doesn't work terribly well, and I just get frustrated when I do that. Here's another table with, so here's a table of some self-care things. Using a rocking chair, drumming, singing, sitting quietly and coloring, listing all my supports, which we just did, listing my happy places, we did. Crunchy foods or chocolate can actually change our mood, especially if we are feeling shut down and foggy. Crunchy foods and chocolate can move us towards the window of tolerance. Isn't that an awesome thing? All the chocolate I want. All kinds of exercise, making yourself a cup of tea or coffee, finger painting, working with clay, using a stress ball, a squeezy ball, using resistance bands, and swinging. Even for adults, these things help us feel safe, help us to engage our senses, help us to engage prefrontal cortex. So in real life, how does this work? Well, here's sort of a silly little example of if I'm in hyperarousal. So my boss comes and says that I've done something wrong. Wrong? I'll show you wrong. More disappointments, harumph. People just don't know how to keep commitments. Tired? Sure, I'm tired. But busy people don't take naps. If I'm hypoaroused, I'm wrong again and I'm worthless. I'm so worthless. I will never make plans again with anybody. I am so tired that I can't possibly work. I'm going home. You say that I'm wrong? Well, why don't you tell me more about that? You need to change your plans? Okay, I can work with that. Let me know what you're working on and I'll see what I can do. I think I should take a brief coffee break. These are silly examples, but I think they make the point that when we're stuck in either of the extremes, we go to places that are not very positive and just not very helpful for us or anybody else. Okay, so here's a twist. Trauma survivors often feel unseen, dismissed, and even canceled by leaders and loved ones. Why might this be so? Where in the window of tolerance would we be if we're not able to offer hope or comfort or prayer or just sitting quietly and having a listening ear? Where are we in our window of tolerance if someone comes and says, I was abused as a kid and I'm remembering it and I just need support. And instead, it's dismissed. I know your father. There's no way that could have possibly happened. When we discount, dismiss, push other hard stories away, we are not in our window of tolerance. This is not an excuse for anything that is done. But I think it's also worth evaluating in our lives, in our communities, in our experiences, what does it look like to be in the window of tolerance and what does it look like to be pushed out of it? I am not going to be very compassionate. I am not going to be very kind. I am not going to be very patient. I am not going to be able to sit and listen with you and actually nod or sigh or comment in ways that helps the other person know, hey, I hear you. Window of tolerance matters. And part of how we get back there is by asking the question, what are my resources? Which we just did with the hand. Okay, I'll stop preaching now. So I've asked you to try some practices. I would love if you would give some thought and talk to your neighbor about, are there practices in your life that do help you get back into the window of tolerance? And are there practices that you might be able to do to help others get back in the window of tolerance, including the things that you have heard today? Can you identify practices in your own life where you know it helps you move towards calm? Can you identify practices that you might be willing to try to teach somebody else to help them get back in their window of tolerance? Pair and share, and we'll come back together and talk about that. I mean, I know in some ways that it might feel a little bit like I'm beating a dead horse, but the point is that like self-care is really kind of hard for us. And so pushing you to think about it in different ways and process it in different ways hopefully will help you. And it helps me to keep thinking about this for myself. Can you identify one practice in your life that helps you get back into the window of tolerance? I am kind of dog crazy. I should have put a picture of Molly up here. Actually, there's a dog in South Bend who I got to see on my way here. And then there's another dog at home named Molly who's like the love of my life. And not really, but I love her. She's very dear. Being with dogs when I'm at my worst, they just want to be with you. She lays her head on my knee and I don't know, I go to somewhere like I'm 7 years old again and I'm super happy. So being around pets, I don't have any of my own right now. I travel enough that it's actually hard to see my way through how do I have a dog and be on the road a couple months a year. I haven't figured that out, but having friends that have dogs that I get to hang out with is something that's been super helpful for me. Just one suggestion. What have you heard? What did you hear from each other? What do you know in your own life that helps you practice self-care and gets you back into window of tolerance? Silence. Yes, ma'am. Amen. We're sisters. Drinking coffee at sunrise is a lovely, lovely thing. Oh, yes, indeed. Me too. It's the first thing I do when I get up in the morning before anything else. Other comments?
I have a list of songs to music that I listen to.
Awesome. Playlist of songs. Very good. Yep. What else?
Go out and work in my garden and the flowers.
Yes, go out and work in the garden and the flowers. I have a friend who does trauma work, and she says that after she's done a 5-day training, she goes and she works the ground, and she thinks and she weeds and she waters, and she thinks about the hard things that she's heard rolling off down into the soil. And that it is really grounding, and it's not I'm not forgetting about what was said, but also remembering that it isn't my story, and I can let go of it. Beautiful. What else?
I try to take a daily walk.
A daily walk.
Especially, I've learned to go in the morning, summertime, and the afternoon when it's warm. So don't force yourself to be out at a
Yes.
time at the weather or the time.
Yes. In the summer, I take a walk in the morning. In the fall or winter when it's cold, I take a walk in the afternoon for myself. That's lovely. Thank you.
There's an app called Pause. It's short meditations that definitely helps me get back to my window.
Awesome. So there's a software app called Pause, and she uses it and helps her get back into her window of tolerance. It's lovely. More comments?
Allowing myself to take a break.
Yes. Allowing myself to take a break. Yes. We were talking briefly, a family that I work with back in Virginia, they grew up Old Water Mennonite, and he talks about, his dad was harsh, and children were kind of pawns that were moved around the farm to get jobs done. And he did the same thing to his kids until there was a crisis in their lives that they hit a brick wall and they had to ask a lot of questions about God and about the church and about harm. And he is so much more emotionally present with his kids, and they labor together rather than I'm an object that gets moved from the chicken house to somewhere else to do this task. And it's been really beautiful to watch God's love change how he works inside his own family. It's really beautiful.
Laughing has been therapeutic for me, like watching a comedian or
Yes, laughing. Yes, I used to watch really funny shows and I never laughed. And now I laugh out loud and it feels really good. Yes. Can you identify practices that you might do to help others to get back into their window of tolerance? I was saying that for me, the sense 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and also the staged breathing, breathing in on 4, holding 4, breathing out on 6 or 8, that kind of comes if someone is really feeling anxious and asking for help. Those are my go-tos. How about you, with your kids, with your friends, with your communities? Can you say a little more?
Well, what I shared, one example is when I worked with a young boy, he acted out quite a bit, and that was his parents' chief concern. And really, he didn't need me to teach coping mechanisms or anything like that. He just needed me to pick him up and go buy some fries and him tell me, this really sucked, I hated it. And I would be like, I would hate that too if that happened to me. And just acknowledging
Yep.
that was real and his
Yep.
feelings were valid. That's all he needed. He didn't need me to teach him coping mechanisms.
Right.
He just needed someone to not deny.
Absolutely.
True.
So validation, being willing to listen when someone else does have a hard thing to say and acknowledging with them, yes, that was hard, that was difficult, that wasn't fair. Yes, thank you. Other comments? Go ahead.
Holding them and reading a story, it's both a happy time together, but it's also physical touch.
Yes, safe physical touch with mom or dad or older siblings. Reading a story, very good. Somebody, yes.
Spending time with God is something that's very precious to me, especially in the mornings. It seems like there's almost never enough time for that. But if we can take that with the hand about the I can and I will,
Yes.
it's only through Christ that those things are, if we can realize
Yep.
the resources He's given each human being.
Yep.
Another thing about showing interest in others, recently I did that. I made a phone call to someone in mission work from our church. And I tried to be careful, just tried to show an interest, basically where he's at and stuff. I've got a lot to learn on that, but somehow to show care for others
Yes.
without having any
Agenda. No agenda other than I see you, I care about you, how is it going? Absolutely.
I feel this is silly following such a deep.
It's okay.
Our pediatrician would recognize that our kids would get scared and nervous when they came to see him, and so he would always start the appointment throwing a ball
Mm-hmm.
forth, and then our kids could answer the questions he
Yep.
wanted to ask them. So I do that sometimes with my kids when
Yep.
they've fallen and get stuck, and I'm just going to cry for 20 minutes, even though I'm not hurt anymore.
Yes.
Okay, let's go throw a ball.
Brilliant.
That has helped.
Yep. Switching gears and doing something that's physical and has sensory aspects. A lot of trauma therapists use this if adult or a child is sort of stuck, like they're able to tell part of the story and then they kind of shut down. Bessel van der Kolk has videos of himself just bumping a ball back and forth in the office, a beach ball, and you see the person beginning to recover and then be able to go on with what they were trying to talk about. Yep. Yes.
So I'm a nurse and I work
Yes.
early, and one thing that I do with them when I'm feeling really anxious is I go in and talk to them, and then I heat up corn back.
Yes.
So it's weight on them and it's warm.
Yes.
And a lot of times the conversation and the weight and the warmth will calm them down.
Brilliant. Thank you. It's a good one.
This probably sounds kind of corny too, but I've been really conscientiously practicing smile therapy. And I know it sounds kind of silly, but psychologically conquering
Right.
about to be able to say, wait, God is on my side.
Yep.
He loves me. What? Yeah, I'm not negating the intensity or the seriousness of the situation, but I'm going to actually just choose to smile.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say, hey, I don't care. I just feel right now like smiling. And I can just feel my blood pressure relax. And I'm actually trying to exercise new facial muscles that I never was able to use before.
Cool.
Practice a better smile.
Excellent. So smiling therapy, choosing to smile. When an elderly patient is stressed or anxious, just sitting and calmly talking with them and then warming up a beanbag, it has some weight and it has warmth to relax muscles, that can be very calming. Thank you. Any more?
Well, my job is massage therapy, so I hope that I'm helping people get back to their weight on a
Yes.
fairly regular basis. But when we chat, I noticed that a lot of people, I personally struggle with sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and we love to exchange tips and
Yes.
and when I learn something that helps me, I'm happy to pass it on to someone else. I guess something I would say, a practice that I've come to value is valuing sleep as something for our health
Absolutely.
and trying to help other people get better quality.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And it's sort of, so she was saying that as a massage therapist, just having conversations with her clients, maybe even asking for advice. I struggle sometimes with sleep. What do you do? And sleep is important and can be ever elusive, I think, especially for trauma survivors. I've been surprised sometimes if I talk with someone who's a therapist and I say, well, there's a lot of ways to disrupt sleep. If I drink sweet tea 6 times a day, I'm not going to sleep normally, but that might be what they've done all their lives. And so, asking questions and looking for ways that we can, what is the thing they're struggling with, and might I have something to offer, and might they have something to offer me? The bidirectionality is beautiful. Thank you. Any more? Okay. Oh, yes. Yes.
So in the classroom, I tried to have animals around. I would have students write me notes and say, holding that guinea pig in my office, I was having a bad day and it made my day.
Right.
We have dogs as well. We didn't
Yep.
introduce them to you, but they would have been glad to meet you.
Yes.
But I had that even in our counseling
Yep.
hours, that if there's a real dog lover there, that they've held the dog.
It makes a difference. Yeah. I'm not really practicing as a spiritual director currently, but I did practice for a number of years, and I also was a volunteer for Guide Dogs to the Blind. Best hobby ever. Puppies perpetually in my life. But I had the 4 people that I was seeing for spiritual direction all said, if you have a puppy, would you please bring them with you to the session? And it's very interesting. Yes, dogs, animals, touching other warm creatures that show affection for us can have great power. Yes.
I heard a story of there's supposedly in the state of Montana some kind of a horse therapy camp.
Yep.
And the goal is to take abused animals and abused people
Yep.
and put them together and they heal each other.
Yep.
And the story I heard was a lady who was an alcoholic, and it was either 6 months or 6 weeks later after she was paired with this horse to help this horse, she woke up and she said, I haven't had a drink in that
Yep.
entire period of time, and this morning was the first time I realized it.
Yep. Yeah. There's a number of different organizations who do that kind of work, sometimes even inside prisons. And it's had powerful impact on many people who've been profoundly traumatized and also done their own share of trauma. Okay, so we have 20 minutes left. I'm not sure what to do next. I talked about the community, and I think it's unfair of me not to go to that data, which means we might not look a lot at, well, we will look at this. Attributes of a resilience. It might not surprise you to know that most of the things that are on here have something to do with prefrontal cortex and the window of tolerance. Healthy and thoughtful connections to self and others, learning I can ask for help, paying attention to breath and body, practicing prayer, practicing journaling, movement, shaking, artistic expressions of emotion, using music, rhythm, or art to calm the self and then others, humility and vulnerability, that willingness to ask for help in safe ways to safe friends and family or therapists or other people in our lives that we trust, cognitive flexibility, encouraging problem solving within myself and others, not wanting a pat answer necessarily, and when I see that it's a problem that I can resolve if I work at it, not sort of pushing it out into somebody else's lap, would you please solve this for me? So being some of the literature that I relate to, we would talk about being an active agent, taking control, doing what you can to help resolve the issues that are in your life. All of that matters. Fostering hope in self and others. And I have the line here, where there is breath. So I used to visit youth who were in jail. Many of them were gang members, and you might visit them for a year. And as long as they were with the other boys that were on their unit, they would trash talk and drug talk and gun talk. And I didn't make them stop because it is a part of their life. But eventually, sometime, I would get one of those kids one-on-one, and they would actually be honest about difficult things in their lives, and they would ask for prayer, and they would cry. One young man said, I know that if I die tomorrow, no one will come to my funeral. And I said, well, I and Martha and Matt, my colleagues, we would be there. Fostering hope in self and others, as long as there is breath, there's the opportunity to be kind and gracious and caring to other people who don't think they matter, don't think they have value, and we ourselves struggle with that. And so another challenge around resilience and self-care is that if I am able to say what I am, if I am able to be proud of what the gifts that God has given me and how I've used them, it makes us more available to help other people who are feeling the same way. So the window of tolerance and resilience matters, not only because I'm in or out of it, but having a calm, honest appraisal of the ways in which I am valuable helps me do that for other people when they can't do it for themselves. And it's something my therapist needed to do for me for a number of years before I really saw that there was anything actually good about who I was and what I had to offer. Where there's breath, there's hope. Okay, what I was going to do, I don't know how to finish. Someone else said they really wanted to hear some of my story. Do you guys want to hear some of my story? Yes. Okay, we'll stop there. This stuff is in your note. I mean, in the handouts if you ask to receive them, and you can read them for yourselves. These next two slides are asking you. I don't know if I can tell you about my life today. That's brought a lot of emotions up. Opportunities to reflect and journal, and then find someone to share with what you've journaled. Those are And you can keep the questions pretty innocuous. These questions are deep. But if you're working with a bunch of kids in Sunday school, or you're working with some guys or gals that you're meeting in prison, asking some simple questions that relate to self-care, window of tolerance, how do I calm myself? Hearing what other people say helps me understand what I am doing and what I could be doing. And that's another form, in my sense, of how I think about resilience. It's another form of resilience. We're teaching each other as we go. So I will leave these for you. If you should like to do them, you can have access to them. I also wrote out some questions that I've asked some pastors recently about resurrection. Trauma survivors may spend years, I spent years between the agony of the garden and the cross without much clarity about resurrection. What does it look like to stay with those who are living close to the graves? Kind of makes me think of the demoniac who lives. They bind him and he breaks the bounds. How do we walk with people that are in really serious situations where they have been profoundly harmed and they're not sure they're worth anything at all? What role should the church play? Do we judge or do we love first? I think Jesus loved first, and we struggle to do that. Okay, this is stuff. The last section of the slides, if you don't get them for any reason, I think it would be worth it for this. So I wrote these for people who do pastoral care for elderly who are not well, or doesn't have to be elderly, for anybody who needs a pastoral visit. Thinking about your own safety, what helps me be calm? How can I ask and invite somebody in to thinking about that for themselves? You can, would you try drawing with me while we listen to some calming music? You can introduce these kinds of practices in very simple ways, one-on-one or in a classroom, etc. That's all here. It's a lot of stuff, a lot of words. Trauma changes us, but there's still hope. I believe we have the ability to push back against its effects. We have the capacity to learn to notice our reactions, emotions, our bodies, our thoughts, and we can care for ourselves and for others. These elements of the human condition were given to us by God, including all of those things, my emotions, my body, my thoughts. We can choose to care for others and for ourselves in ways that reduce the effects of trauma on ourselves and on the world. Several books. I'm going to close that out. What do I tell you in 10 minutes about my life? I didn't take any notes at lunchtime. Okay, so adopted into a conservative Mennonite family in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And my friends, the story is pretty grim. Abused by my dad until I was 19 and left the house. My mom joined that abuse as well. And my dad gave me away to other men, to a pastor, to school teachers. It was really unbelievable. Like, I still sometimes don't know how to talk about it because these are not sentences we want to say about ourselves. And it makes me weep. Somehow, I managed to survive. And in college, I met someone who was also an abuse survivor, and she told me her story. I had forgotten most of what happened as it happened because it was the only way to survive. And so when she told me her story, it was like a zipper, a drawer got pulled out of the unconscious. And I started to dream. I started to remember things at night, and I would wake up wanting to hurt myself. And I thought, because I was a psych major, and we love to diagnose ourselves, that's part of why we become psych majors, I thought that I was having a schizophrenic break. And I turned to one of my professors. I lost 60 pounds in like 2 months. I was, one of the ways that we can experience a depression is that we can have no pleasure. All the things that were pleasurable to us, including things like chocolate in my case, food tasted like cardboard, so I stopped eating. Almost. Not really wise. But a professor said she knew something had gone terribly wrong in my childhood, and we both agreed that I need therapy. And she said, I don't want you to see a professor on campus, because when you see these therapists, when you graduate in 6 months, you can't see them anymore. They're contracted only to see students who are enrolled. Do you have someone you could ask? Yes, there was someone that I could ask for some names. And she said, when you find the person that you want to work with, I will help you pay for therapy, because I do not want you asking your parents because it's blood money. You've told me enough of your story to know that you should be free of that. You should not be dependent upon them to start treatment. And that's where it started. It was a pretty rough ride, the first couple of years especially. Unfortunately, there were a lot of memories to remember and process and resolve. And I didn't really think that my dad had told me that I didn't have a soul. And so I didn't know if I knew the difference between right and wrong. And that's one of the miracles of the therapist that I worked with, because she believed it was possible for me to regain that sense. And I did, eventually. I looked at Buddhism, and I looked at Hinduism, because I wasn't sure I could do Christianity, because Christianity, from my parents' twisted Christianity, had held me in bondage. And ultimately, and I think to a large portion, because my therapist showed me so much compassion, so much willingness to enter my suffering, help me to stay safe, help me to make new decisions. Ultimately, Jesus had relevance, because her amazing compassion didn't just come from being a good therapist. It also came from being a follower of Jesus. And in some ways, that's the rest of my story. I hope I don't shock any of you, or that you don't think worse of me. I've been in therapy for 35 years with the same person. She's the mother I never had. She's the professional I've become. And she's the reason I'm a follower of Jesus. I'm still doing some work. The stuff at the end of adolescence with being given away, I still have some of that stuff that I'm working on. But I am so much more in my window of tolerance most days. And I'm so much more able to work and to walk alongside others who have been traumatized, and not have it be something that makes it impossible to do my work. I love that the PhD that I pursued ultimately set me up to offer this kind of training, because there aren't that many neuroscientists who teach about the brain in a way that is accessible to people who don't study the brain every day. And I hope most of it made sense. And you have my email and my phone number at the bottom of the handout, so if you're really confused, I'll do my best to help you clarify. Now I do this full time. I have about 30, it's a 501c3, so about 40 donors who worked with me and supported me when I was a missionary, took this jump with me into this new organization, and I love what I do. It feels like everything that has ever happened to me, and also being a case manager, working on inpatient units before graduate school, working among gang members who were profoundly traumatized, working in Cambodia, where an entire country is traumatized by a 35-year-old war that killed a quarter of their population. that all of that work led to this path today. And I am very grateful and glad to be here with you. You've been an awesome audience. Thank you. The end.